The monsters are due on Maple Street as one of the most well-known and poignant episodes in the classic Twilight Zone TV series. The episode tells the tale of a small, quiet street in an unassuming town that experiences a strange occurrence, causing the residents to become paranoid and dangerous. But could there be something else afoot? Well, we're about to find out as we enter the Twilight Zone. In a small town, on an unassuming street, the residents of Maple Street are enjoying a beautiful summer day, watering their lawns and playing baseball. But all of that would soon come to an end when a strange bright object above would prove to be this community's downfall.
What was that, a meteor?
Yeah, that's what it looked like. I didn't hear any crash though, did you?
Not knowing what the object was that passed by or if it even landed, the people of Maple Street go back to their daily routine, until they notice that all the power has seemingly been cut. But as they soon come to find out, it isn't just electrical that won't work. Phone lines appear to be down, along with portable radio, and cars won't even start, as Steve Brand discovers when he attempts to find some answers.
I don't understand it. It was working fine before.
Were you out of gas?
Steve and Charlie Farnsworth decide they're going to walk to the police station to figure out what's going on when a young neighbor boy, Tommy, pipes up, telling the men he believes it's visitors from outer space that are causing all of this and preventing the townsfolk from leaving.
It's always that way in every story I've ever read about a ship landing from outer space.
From outer space shit.
Pardon me, but what did she just say?
From outer space shit. From outer space shit.
She definitely said what I thought she did. The residents seem to think Tommy has lost his marbles a bit and has probably been reading too many EC comics. Pulling a Dana Scully, the residents try to rationalize what has occurred, saying it was most likely a cosmic event that caused the disruption, like sunspots.
They look just like humans, and it wasn't until the ship landed that...
Tommy gets their attention when he mentions that in his comic, the invaders sent others before them to prepare for the landing of the ship. They looked like normal everyday people, but were in fact beings from space. The residents who were just mocking Tommy moments ago suddenly think he may be right. Les Goodman, another resident, attempts to start his car, and like all the others, it just won't start. That is until he walks away and it decides to start all on its own.
He always was an oddball. Him and his whole family. Real oddball.
The townsfolk rush over to Les, cornering him and questioning how his car was able to start, but theirs weren't. Steve somehow, with a straight face, explains that they're checking all the neighbors on the street to see if anyone could possibly be a visitor from space and responsible for what's going on.
We've lived here for 5 years, right in this house. We aren't any different from you, any different at all.
A woman from the group claims she's been seeing Les acting oddly late at night, finding him outside looking up at the sky as if waiting for something or someone. Les claims it's insomnia that keeps him up, and the residents all act like he has the plague. And to think, all this because a teen boy reads too many comics.
Any guy who'd spend his time looking up at the sky early in the morning, there's something wrong with that kind of a person. Something that ain't legitimate.
If being outside late at night looking up at the stars is cause for suspicion, then I should be locked up. Steve tries calming the situation, but loudmouth Charlie only seems to egg things on, throwing accusations at Steve that he could be the visitors from space as well.
Go ahead, Steve. What kind of radio set you working on?
Steve's wife let it slip that he's been working on a radio, and now the group's suspicion has shifted to him. Of course, Charlie, who's been drinking all night, thinks Steve's been using this radio to communicate with the other visitors.
Well, I talked to monsters from outer space. I talked to three-headed green men who fly over here in what look like meteors.
His wife breaks things up before they can escalate, saying it's just a ham radio set that she herself bought the book for. The group continues their infighting until a set of footsteps divert their attention.
It's the monster! It's the monster!
No, it's just Ben Tramer. One of the other residents rushes over and hands Steve a good old double-barrel shotgun. He refuses to use such a weapon. However, Charlie, who's 10 beers deep at this point, isn't about to let no man from space come near them. Well, wouldn't you know it, it wasn't a spaceman at all. No, it was neighbor Pete Van Horn, who went a street over to see if they had working power. Charlie tries to make excuses for what he did, claiming Pete was in the dark, so how could he know who he was?
Why did the lights go on in your house?
What about it, Charlie?
The power in Charlie's house suddenly turns back on, and the mob has now averted their attention to him. Even cool-headed Steve has turned on Charlie. They grab rocks and throw them at Charlie and his home, but Charlie tries to dissuade them from continuing by once again shifting the accusation to another.
It's Tommy! He's the one!
Oh, that's not true!
I mean, he does kind of have a point. If Tommy had not mentioned anything about spacemen, Steve and Charlie would have simply gone to the police and none of this would have happened. The group immediately turns on Tommy as he runs for his life.
It's Bob Weaver's house!
All the lights around turn on and off as the group now completely erupts into total anarchy. But this was all by design. See, Tommy was right. There were men from space, and this entire thing was a form of conquest. Simply turn off their electricity, their devices, and the people will turn on one another. Why would the invaders need to do any of the work themselves when man will simply do it for them?
Their world is full of maple streets. And we'll go from one to the other and let them destroy themselves.
The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is a fantastic episode with themes of fear and paranoia, taking a jab at the Second Red Scare, also known as McCarthyism at the time. The fact that friends and neighbors can be turned on one another so easily is a rather chilling idea that has recently become weaponized by the modern day media. The episode seems to take some inspiration from the John W. Campbell novella, Who Goes There? A story about a group of scientific researchers who come into contact with a shape-shifting alien that can perfectly imitate any living being, leaving the men paranoid and fearful as to who may be the creature. The story was adapted into the 1951 film The Thing from Another World and the 1982 horror classic John Carpenter's The Thing. Similar themes can also be found in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Burbs, and the X-Files episode Ice. The episode was directed by Ron Winston, which would be the first he would direct for the series. His use of angles and quick cuts at the end really drive home the fear and paranoia the group becomes overwhelmed by, and the shot of their feet as they run after Tommy almost makes them out to be some kind of a hive mind only capable of acting and thinking as one. Rod Serling would provide writing duties for the episode and wanted to use the show as a way to talk about current day political issues without upsetting potential sponsors or the network. Before the episode came out, newspapers like the Miami Herald had misquoted Rod Serling when talking about the episode, claiming his commentary was about minorities needing a scapegoat to explain their own weaknesses, which couldn't have been further from the truth. Rod also used the theme of an angry mob for several other stories, including The Gift, an episode about an alien being disguised as a human who comes bearing a gift, only to be killed by a group of frightened villagers, and The Shelter, about a family huddled away in a bomb shelter after a warning of nuclear attack is announced and their neighbors attempt to break their way inside. The episode was shot on the famous MGM Andy Hardy Street, also known as the New England Street, which would often be used throughout the series to depict small, quaint suburban life. Andy Hardy was a series of films made in the 1930s and 40s starring Mickey Rooney, and the character's home was used as Charlie's house for this episode. The aliens at the end are wearing uniforms left over from the 1957 science fiction film Forbidden Planet. The stairway the aliens walk up was also from that film and was used in the episode To Serve Man. The stock footage spaceship at the end, also taken from Forbidden Planet, was shown upside down compared to the original version, and this shot was also used for the episode Third from the Sun. Dialogue from this episode was also used by the Canadian industrial music band Skinny Puppy and sampled for their song Monster Radio Man.
I swear it isn't! I know who it is! I know who the monster is!
There have been several adaptations of the episode, including a short story in Rod Serling's book, Stories from the Twilight Zone, a 2002 radio drama featuring Frank John Hughes, a 2009 graphic novel entitled Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone, and was remade in 2003 under the UPN Revival series, which had a few changes to the story to fit the modern setting. Instead of aliens, the story would instead focus on terrorists. The residents wouldn't focus their fear on each other, instead a mysterious new neighbor they all believe to be a terrorist, until it's revealed to be an experiment by the US military to see how Americans would react under a real terrorist threat. The episode was generally well received, but falls short when compared to the original. Claude Atkins would play the role of Steve Brand. He brought a nice level-headedness to the role, which directly played off the other characters' fear and paranoia. Claude appeared in nearly 100 films and made many appearances in television, including things like Battle for the Planet of the Apes, Rio Bravo, and 38 episodes of The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo.
Lobo, bring back Sheriff Lobo! Lobo!
He passed away on January 27, 1994 at the age of 64. Jack Weston played the role of Charlie Farnsworth. He does a great job being the counter to Steve's more cool-headed approach to the situation, and boasts a snazzy shirt to boot. He had a lot of small character roles throughout his career, and will most likely be best remembered as one of Audrey Hepburn's assailants in the 1967 cult classic, Wait Until Dark. Jack passed away on May 3rd, 1996, at the age of 71. The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street is a very good episode, and one I think most people should check out. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please let YouTube know by hitting that like button. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time in the Twilight Zone.